5,000 hours. That is the number the marine industry uses to declare your diesel engine dead. Brokers print it on listings. Surveyors circle it in red. Repower shops quote you $20,000 the moment your hour meter crosses that line. And the number is a lie. The average marine diesel is engineered to run 10,000 to 14,000 hours before it needs a major overhaul. Latitude 38, one of the most respected sailing publications on the West Coast, confirmed that figure in 2022 after interviewing marine diesel mechanics across California. The gap between what the industry tells you and what the metal can actually do is not a rounding error. It is a business model. A $20,000 repower on a boat whose engine had 10,000 hours of life left is not maintenance. It is extraction. And 5 engine families have exposed that extraction for decades, running past the so-called death sentence, past the surveyor's red circle, past the broker's discount, and into territory. The repower shops never want you to see. This is their record. Every hour on it is documented. How many hours are on your diesel right now? Drop that number in the comments along with the engine model. If your engine is on this list, you already know what the industry does not want you to hear. This is Yachts and Boats. Subscribe so you see every investigation we publish. The first engine on this list started its life in a Japanese rice paddy. In March 1912, a man named Magokichi Yamaoka opened a small engine workshop in Osaka, Japan. His goal was direct: build a compact diesel that a single farmer could afford and operate without help. At the time, every diesel engine on Earth was too large and too expensive for small-scale use. Yamaoka spent 21 years on the problem. On December 23, 1933, his team tested a prototype called the HB. It was designed for 3 horsepower. It delivered 5. That engine became the world's first commercially viable small diesel. The Japanese government later registered it among Japan's essential historical materials for science and technology. By 1925, 8 years before the HB breakthrough, Yanmar had already built its first marine engine for Japanese fishing boats. The company understood saltwater before it understood diesel combustion. Today, Yanmar builds marine diesels from 9 to 640 horsepower. The company has produced over 15 million diesel engines since 1933. The small ones, the GM and YM series, power the majority of cruising sailboats under 40 feet worldwide. Yanmar dealers PacWest Marine in San Diego and Boatswain's Locker in Costa Mesa cite 10,000 operating hours as the baseline target for a properly maintained Yanmar auxiliary. Not the ceiling, the baseline. Larry Borland of Mac Boring, one of the largest Yanmar distributors in North America, told a room full of boat owners at a diesel maintenance course that current Yanmars have a serviceable life of 20,000 hours. And then there is the proof that makes both of those numbers look conservative. A sport fishing fleet in Hawaii called Finest Kind logged over 40,000 hours on its Yanmar 6LY engines. The same fleet ran over 50,000 hours on a set of 4 LH blocks before rebuilding them in 2020. That data comes from Yanmar Marine International's own published testimonial. A Japanese government vessel reportedly crossed 40,000 hours on its Yanmar with no major overhaul, according to PacWest Marine. The sailboat versions are smaller, simpler, and less stressed than those commercial engines. They run at lower pressures. They burn roughly half a gallon per hour at cruising RPM. They spend long stretches at a steady cruise that diesel blocks love. Experienced owners on Sailboat Owners Forums describe 5,000 hours on a properly maintained Yanmar as still a puppy. One Yanmar 3YM30 owner in the UK reported approaching 6,000 hours with no smoke, instant starts, and very low oil consumption. His only replacements across that entire span were 4 starter motors, 3 water pumps, and 3 exhaust elbows. The block itself never needed attention. A charter fleet in the Mediterranean ran 25 boats equipped with Yanmar 3YM30 engines. After 5 years of daily commercial use, every single boat had accumulated between 2,500 and 3,500 hours. Not one engine had been replaced. Yanmar engines are not flawless. Owners and mechanics across multiple forums describe a recurring quirk. Yanmar uses soft metal bolts in its engine construction. Sailors call them chocolate fastenings because they shear when you apply a normal wrench. It is a real annoyance during head removal and injector service. But it is a fastener complaint, not a block complaint. The iron underneath those bolts keeps running long after the wrenches have been thrown across the engine compartment. A new Yanmar 3YM30, the most common modern sailboat auxiliary, retails between $10,000 and $15,000 depending on dealer and configuration. At 10,000 hours of service life, that is $1 per hour of operation. At the 20,000 hours Mac Boring claims, it is 50 cents. No repower shop will quote you that math. If a 6ly in a Hawaiian charter boat can survive 40,000 hours of daily punishment, a 3GM in a weekend cruising sailboat has barely started at 5,000. The second engine on this list was never supposed to go near water. Ford of England built a truck diesel called the Dorset series. It was not a great truck engine, too slow for the highway, too heavy for its output class. The trucking industry moved on. Lehman Manufacturing looked at the same block and saw exactly what the trucking industry missed. A heavy, slow-turning, naturally aspirated diesel that ran well below its design limits was the perfect match for a displacement trawler doing 7 knots for thousands of hours. The characteristics that made it a poor truck engine made it a legendary marine engine. Lehman marinized the Dorset, Grand Banks bolted it in, and the Ford Lehman 120 became the most recognized trawler engine in North American boating history. Bob Smith, the founder of American Diesel in Kilmarnock, Virginia, spent his career as the leading Ford Lehman specialist in the country. He told his customers a properly cared-for Lehman will last around 15,000 hours. His son Brian now runs the company. The Trawler Forum community, which contains one of the densest concentrations of Lehman owners anywhere online, puts the standard range at 12,000 to 14,000 hours before a rebuild is needed. One Grand Banks 42 owner documented approximately 18,000 hours on his twin Lehmans before selling the boat. The port engine got a top-end rebuild at 11,000 hours. The starboard kept running. An experienced diesel mechanic on Trawler Forum estimated that fewer than 2% of low-displacement, naturally aspirated diesels like the Lehman ever actually wear out mechanically. The other 98% are killed by something else entirely. The same Dorset block that powers the Lehman 120 was also used in Ferguson tractors, case equipment, and New Holland machinery. That means parts cross-reference to agricultural catalogs. A starter motor that costs $400 from a marine supplier costs a fraction of that from a tractor parts dealer selling the identical unit. But what kills the other 98% is a story for the end of this list, and it involves a part that costs $200. The third engine on this list shares its DNA with a Dodge Ram pickup. The Cummins 6BT is a 5.9-liter inline 6-cylinder turbocharged diesel. Marine ratings range from 210 to 370 horsepower depending on the configuration. It powers fishing boats, trawlers, patrol vessels, and one of the best-selling American trucks ever manufactured. A Nordic tug owner running a 2001 Cummins 6BTA at 1,400 RPM cruise reported over 10,000 hours with the engine still running strong in 2020. One owner's Dodge Ram with the same 6BT block reached 488,000 miles on the original turbo with zero oil consumption and perfect oil analysis. That translates to roughly 9,760 hours of operation from a truck that was not babied. On Trawler Forum, the debate over Cummins 6BT lifespan runs hot. One poster assumed the magic number was 10,000 hours. A broker corrected him, 20,000 hours. Laborda Products, a commercial marine diesel specialist, reported that many Cummins engines are overhauled around 12,000 to 15,000 hours. In certain cases, they reach 35,000 to 40,000 hours with the right maintenance and operating conditions. A top-end overhaul on a Cummins 6-cylinder takes about 3 days and costs roughly 30 to 35% of a full engine replacement. For context, that means a top-end overhaul on a Cummins costs less than what some marina operators charge for a single season of slip fees in South Florida. 50,000 hours on a Yanmar fishing engine, 18,000 on a Ford Lehman trawler block, over 10,000 on a Cummins that shares its internals with a pickup truck. The pattern. Connecting these three engines is not subtle. and the next two engines expose something the marine pricing structure would prefer you never examine. The fourth engine on this list debuted at the 1960 New York Boat Show and is still running in thousands of sailboats 65 years later. The Perkins 41108 is a four-cylinder, 107.4 cubic inch cast iron diesel producing 51 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. The recommended cruising output sits at 32 horsepower at 3,000 RPM, a deliberate derating that stretches the block's life by decades. No turbo, no electronics, no computer, just four cylinders, a rotary distributor-type mechanical fuel injection pump, and cast iron thick enough to absorb 40 years of saltwater exposure. One owner reported his Perkins 4.108 lasted 12,000 hours before a crankshaft bearing issue ended its run. He replaced it with a Yanmar that has since passed 8,000 hours on nothing but routine oil changes. Another owner's friend ran a 4.108 to 15,000 hours and overhauled it as a precaution. The engine was still performing. A cruiser motored his 4.108 equipped sailboat 1,100 nautical miles from La Paz, Mexico to Ventura, California, running the engine. 5 straight days continuously. It leaked a small amount of oil. It did not stop. That engine had over 5,000 hours on it at the time. Perkins ended production of the 4.108 in the 1980s. The rear main seal kit costs $30. Many thousands of these engines remain in daily service more than 6 decades after their introduction. The fifth engine on this list reveals what the marine pricing structure is actually built on. Beta Marine, a British company founded in 1987, takes Kubota industrial diesel blocks and marinizes them. The result is a freshwater-cooled, naturally aspirated marine diesel available from 10 to 90 horsepower. Kubota blocks power construction excavators, agricultural tractors, truck refrigeration units, and commercial lawn equipment on every continent. Heavy equipment operators report 10,000 to 20,000 hours on Kubota blocks with no rebuilds. One trucking company that uses Kubota-based engines in their fleet runs them to 800,000 miles, approximately 13,000 hours, before selling. The blocks themselves are rated for multiple rebuilds, potentially reaching 60,000 hours over their total life. The marine version runs at lower loads and steadier revolutions per minute than any tractor or excavator ever will. And here is the detail the pricing structure does not want exposed. Volvo Penta, the most expensive small marine diesel brand in the sailing market, uses Perkins engine blocks for all of its small engines. The Marine Diesel Buyer's Guide on Boats.com confirmed this directly. The engine under a Volvo Penta badge shares its core architecture with one of the lowest-cost industrial diesel families in the world. A Volvo Penta oil cooler costs $2,600 to replace. A Beta Marine running a Kubota block of the same displacement class delivers the same fundamental engineering at a lower purchase price, with parts available from tractor dealerships at agricultural prices instead of marine marked-up prices. When you strip the brand badges off these engines and look at the blocks underneath, the price differences stop making mechanical sense. They start making margin sense. The 5 engines are on the record, the hours are documented. The question left is the one every boat owner needs to answer before signing a repower check. What actually kills a marine diesel before it reaches its design life? Those California diesel mechanics told Latitude 38 the answer. Most marine diesels go bad after about 4,000 hours. The cause is not mechanical wear. It is lack of use and misuse. Diesels are designed to run long, run hard, and run hot. A sailboat diesel that gets used 30 minutes at a time to motor in and out of a slip never reaches operating temperature. Moisture condenses inside the oil pan. Carbon deposits build on the piston rings. Fuel degrades in the tank. The engine ages from sitting, not from running. Running a diesel at idle for short bursts is the equivalent of driving a car only in first gear for 3 blocks at a time. It is the worst possible operating profile for the machine. The fix is free. Run the engine at load. Hold 2,500 revolutions per minute underway for at least 30 minutes every time you start it. Give it a full throttle run for a few minutes once a month. The combustion heat burns off the moisture. The ring pressure clears the carbon. the oil reaches the temperature it needs to do its job. One Passagemaker magazine writer ran his 1984 Grand Banks with a single Ford Lehman for over 15,000 miles of coastal cruising across 9 years, following exactly that discipline. The engine never missed a beat. But the single most common physical killer is a part most owners have never inspected. The seawater mixing elbow sits where raw cooling water meets the exhaust stream. Salt eats the metal from the inside out. When the elbow corrodes through, salt water floods backward into the exhaust manifold and from there into the cylinders. That part costs $200 to replace on schedule. Many engine manufacturers recommend inspecting it every 5 years and replacing it every 10. The engine it destroys when that elbow fails costs $10,000 to $20,000 to replace. A full repower on a mid-size sailboat, including labor, mounts, and alignment, runs $15,000 to $30,000. Every one of the 5 engines on this list can reach 10,000 hours. The Ford Lehman can reach 15,000 hours. The Yanmar, with verified commercial evidence, has proven it can reach 40,000 hours. The only things standing between your engine and those numbers are $200 for an elbow, $30 for an oil change every 100 hours, and the willingness to run the engine the way its engineers designed it to be run. The marine industry defines high hours at 5,000 because that number moves inventory, justifies discounts on used boat listings, and generates $20,000 repower invoices. The metal disagrees. The ledger does not lie. Subscribe to Yachts and Boats for the investigations. The marine industry does not want published.